Writing is a tricky part of the OET exam. I meet a lot of people who have really good English and yet they struggle with the writing paper. I think often the way we write isn't always the way we speak. And in the OET, as with many exams, you have to produce a formal and professional letter. So often the structures you use are not the same as when you speak. You're sometimes using some quite unusual and quite formal structures. A lot of that is language, and language is a huge part of writing. But another part of your writing as well is also the organization of your letter. So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at organizing, paragraphing, and highlighting key information. So as usual, I'm going to share my screen with you. And let's start. This is something you will be familiar with. Or if you're not familiar with it, then it's something you want to familiarize yourself with. It's worth having a look at this document. This is the criteria which examiners use to assess your writing. You can see at the top, there are 5 sub-criteria. And what we're going to do in this lesson, we're just going to focus on organization and layout. And it's impossible to look at everything in the criteria. That's a whole different lesson by itself. So really, that's what we're looking at today in this lesson. We're going to focus on organization and layout. You can see with the criteria, you get a band score from 0 all the way up to 7. And there's a description at band 1, band 3, band 5, and band 7. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in on band 7. And let's just have a look and see what it says you need to do to get the top marks for organization. Okay, this is what it says. It says organization and paragraphing are appropriate, logical, and clear. Key information is highlighted and subsections are well organized. The document is well laid out. We'll take a closer look at that in a moment and see what they actually mean. But there are 3 adjectives to pick out here. Appropriate, logical, and clear. These 3 words are really important. And you're going to see this word logical come up again and again. And this is something we're going to look at in today's lesson. Essentially, your letter needs to be well organized, not just with the layout, but also with paragraphing as well. You need to have good, clear paragraphs, which are logical and make perfect sense. Also here in the top band, in band 7, it says key information is highlighted. So key information are the key case notes. It's the really relevant information which you cannot really leave out of your letter. This is the information which the recipient needs to know in order to take care of the patient. So this information is vital. When you're selecting your case notes, this is the stuff. These are the case notes that you cannot leave out of your letter. And the key information that you have, when it says highlighted, really what they mean is that it should really come at the top of the letter, or it should at least come at the beginning of the paragraph. We'll look at a couple of examples in this lesson. And just so you get an idea of what they mean when they say key information is highlighted, you're going to see 2 paragraphs. They're very short and they're very similar. The question is, what is the difference and which one is better? You've got 30 seconds for this, guys, and then we'll have a quick discussion. Okay, so I said we'd have a quick discussion. So of course, I'm not going to be talking to myself. What I mean is, if you want to type any comments into the chat, please type in any comments, any questions you have, please do use the chat. So what do you think, student A or student B? Which paragraph is better? Well, both of them are very well written. If you look at the grammar, they'd probably score the same mark for grammar because, well, they're written perfectly. There are no grammatical errors at all, no spelling mistakes, the punctuation is good. So both of them are very similar with language. However, with organization, there's one big difference. Yeah, you can see here, that's the difference between the two paragraphs. So a CT scan revealed the patient had a tumor. This sounds pretty important to me. In fact, it sounds really, really crucial. This is vital information. The other things you got here, vital signs stable, blood pressure slightly elevated, no abnormalities in the chest x-ray. Well, there's not too much there, really. I know you don't have a lot of context here, but really the point is just to show you that the key information should really come at the beginning of the paragraph. The other information, it's not as important really for the recipient. So in this letter, with organization, student A would probably score higher. What they've done is they've highlighted this information. It's actually really important information, and they've been direct. They've put it right at the beginning of the paragraph. Student B left this information until the end of the paragraph, but it needs to be given, if I can say, prominence. You need to make it important. And the way you do that is by putting it at the beginning of your letter or at the beginning of the paragraph. So that gives you an idea of what they're talking about when they say highlight key information. And let's just have a quick look at the other criteria. We got band 7, and if we look at band 5 as well, let's just compare it. It's very similar. Here it says organization and paragraphing are generally appropriate, logical and clear, occasional lapses of organization in subsections and or highlighting of key information. Layout is generally good. You can see it's very similar to band 7, but you get this word, generally. So generally appropriate, logical and clear, and generally good. In other words, you are allowed to make some errors. So please do remember your letter doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect to get a grade B. You are allowed to make some mistakes. So don't panic. Don't think your letter has to be 100% perfect. You can see here, as long as it's generally good with the organization, you'll be okay. You are allowed to make some mistakes. And also here, occasional lapses. So not big mistakes, but just minor errors. So don't panic. Like I said, your letter doesn't have to be perfect to get a grade B or a C plus if you're a nurse. And now let's go to band 3. This is somewhere where we don't want to be. It says here organization and paragraphing are not always logical, creating strain for the reader. Key information may not be highlighted. Layout is mostly appropriate with some lapses. Okay, so you can see here if your paragraphing is not logical and it creates strain for the reader. In other words, the reader has to reread your paragraph or your writing again. And that's really not good because in order to pass the OET writing, your letter needs to be fluent. Examiners need to be able to read your letter from beginning to end fluently without stopping and having to reread bits. And you can see here, if your organization is creating strain and it's not logical, it's going to cost you, it's going to put you into a band 3. And that's somewhere where you really don't want to be, whether you're a doctor or a nurse or a pharmacist. We all really want to be in band 5 or band 7. Okay, and you can see those words have highlighted, not logical, creating strain for the reader. Key information may not be highlighted. In other words, sometimes it shows you haven't really understood the situation and you really need to understand the case notes, you need to understand the situation. Is it an urgent situation? You need to get that urgency across. Which information is important? What do I need to put at the top of my letter? If you haven't really understood the case notes properly, you can see here, you may not know which information to highlight, and that can cost you. Okay, we're going to be looking at some examples. And as I said, if you do have questions, please just do use the chat box. The exam, 5 minutes reading time, 40 minutes writing. So this is how the writing exam is structured. I know a lot of you will be familiar with this. The 5 minutes reading time is absolutely crucial. So during this time, you need to identify the purpose, think about who you're writing to, who is the recipient, why are you writing to them, and what do you want them to do? You've got to be really clear on the purpose, because once you're clear on the purpose, then you can think about selecting case notes. And when you select your case notes, think about what's extremely relevant, what is really, really important, what does the recipient need to know to look after the patient, what can I not leave out of my letter? And then, as well as extremely relevant, think about what's semi-relevant as well. This is important for your organization, as we're going to see in a moment. And then think about what's irrelevant. Remember, most case notes are distractors, and most case notes you won't need. Though do be careful, OET, they like to keep you guessing. There may be situations where there are very few case notes and you might need most of them. And remember that every task is different. So everything I tell you is a general kind of rule. But generally speaking, most case notes are distractors. So just take care with the selection, what's relevant, what's semi-relevant, and what is irrelevant. Okay, let's keep working. Guys, let's go forward. Let's have a look at some paragraphing. Logical paragraphing, we've seen this word before. Okay, we've got a situation here where we've got a referral letter. You're writing to an admitting doctor in a hospital. The main complaint or the diagnosis is a suspected relapse of pericarditis. So it's a fairly serious thing we've got here. The purpose, the reason of writing is you want the recipient to assess and also to manage the patient. Okay, so we've got a little bit of context and a little bit of background. And what I'm just going to ask you to do, just take a few seconds to read this paragraph. Okay, so you can see here we've got quite a lot of information in this paragraph, but the paragraph has been organized in a certain way. This isn't just 4 or 5 random sentences thrown together. There's a real logic behind this paragraph. If you think about the first sentence, it says Miss Stiles became unwell on the 23rd of August while visiting her sister in Green Valley. Okay, just that one sentence, you think, what's going on in this sentence? Well, actually, this is really just giving you a little bit of background. And then it tells you in the next sentence, she was admitted, and we've got some symptoms: fever, pleuritic chest pain, tachycardia, general malaise. So we've moved to symptoms. In the next sentence, you can see they talk about, well, throat swab investigations, there's an echocardiogram, pericarditis, which indicated pericarditis, and there's a chest x-ray as well. Essentially, we've moved to test results. And then if you think about the next sentence, Miss Stiles was managed with IV saline and ibuprofen. We then move to management as well. The final sentence is kind of discharge. She was discharged home and a nursing visit was arranged. Kind of talking about discharge. When you think about the paragraph like that, you can see the logic. It started with the background, then it moved to symptoms, test results, how the patient was managed, and then discharge. There's a logic there, and that's really what they want with OET. And you really need to think deeply about your paragraphing. You're moving case notes around. Remember, don't just copy case notes in order. In OET, you're going to have to really think about case notes, what is important, and you need to move the important information towards the top. And you need to create kind of logical paragraphs. So this is one example of a paragraph, and you can see how it's been arranged so that it's logical. Okay, there are different ways of organizing paragraphs, of course, and we're going to look at a couple of different ways in this lesson. We've got another situation here. Again, it's a referral letter. This time it's an occupational therapist. The main complaint, the patient basically has hurt his back. It's a damaged back. The purpose of your letter is to request an assessment of the patient's workplace to help him return to work. Now, occupational therapist, it's something which actually you don't have in every single country. And I've worked with people who have asked me, what is an occupational therapist? This is, well, the word occupation does give you a clue, and it's really someone who provides therapy for people who have had injuries. It could be injuries in accidents that they've had, like here we've got someone who's had a bad back. People who have hurt themselves and in a way they want to get back to work as well. And an occupational therapist will provide them with plans and with rehabilitation or treatment programs to help them get back to work. So that's what we've got in this situation here. And we've got some case notes. This is the first thing you've got to do. You've got to decide which case note does not need to be highlighted. In other words, which is the odd one out. So you're going to see 4 case notes. You've got 30 seconds, guys, to try to identify the one case note that doesn't need to be highlighted. Okay, good luck. Okay, so how did you do with this? Well, we're writing to an occupational therapist, and remember the purpose. The purpose is key in selecting case notes. The occupational therapist really wants to know about the patient's condition, their situation. And you can see here, well, the first case note, yeah, it's related to the patient's back, what an x-ray show. We've got some symptoms here. Again, the recipient might be interested in that. Signs of depression. Okay, so this is probably the one case note which doesn't really stand out. It's not directly related to the main complaint. You might say it's semi-relevant. You know, I'm not saying you wouldn't put it in your letter, maybe you would. But it's not as important as the other case notes. All of the other case notes are related to the main complaint. So what we're going to do now, let's do a second task really quickly. This time you've got to order the case notes logically. We know which 3 case notes are important. You've just got to put them in order of importance. We've got 30 seconds. Okay, great. That's great. So this is what I did here. So this is how I would logically order my paragraph. Hurt back while lifting the box. Essentially, I've started with the history. That's what it is, how the injury happened. So I've got the history, and then I've got symptoms. After that, some tests or test results, and then the depression, really just other information. Okay, and again, you can see the logic there: history, symptoms, test results. Okay, this time now, we're going to just focus a little bit on language. And this is a little bit challenging, but I think it's really good practice as well. So you're going to write a paragraph. You've got 1 minute now to turn these case notes into grammatical sentences. Think about how you might combine case notes to make one sentence from two case notes, maybe. Think about your subjects as well, and your verbs and your tenses. You've got a minute, guys, to write your paragraph, and then we'll take a look at a sample answer. Okay, so how was that? Okay, I'm going to show you a sample answer. Remember, there are different answers. There are different ways that you can write your letter. So I'm just going to show you one example of many. Okay. It says, Mr. Jones hurt his back whilst lifting a heavy box. He experienced severe lower back pain, though an X-ray showed there were no problems with his disc. There is a danger that he may fall into a depression should he not return to work soon. Okay, it's difficult for me not to analyze the language. As an English teacher, I want to talk about the grammar and the structures. I want to talk about verbs and sentences, but really I want to keep the focus of this lesson on organization. So I don't want to go too far away from organization. But you can see there we combined a couple of sentences, a couple of case notes. We actually made a compound sentence. So we put some case notes together to form a larger sentence. Okay, and it's interesting, so many different ways that you could actually write these case notes. Okay, let's move on to another task then. We're going to do a very similar thing here. So we've got some context. This time it's a letter of discharge. You're writing to a senior nurse who works in a residential home. The main complaint that we have here, or the main issue, is a right knee replacement. So you can assume the patient has had a right knee replacement. And the purpose, the reason you're writing, is for the recipient to provide aftercare. Okay, so we've got some context, and these are the case notes. Very similar. You're going to see 4 case notes. One case note does not need to be highlighted. Which case note does not need to be highlighted? You've got 30 seconds. Yeah, I'm sure most of you can see. Great. There's one case note there which really, well, there's nothing really to tell the recipient, and you can see a lot of you have got it. Great. No issues with medication. If there's no issues with medication, there's nothing really to write. No new medication. and there's no need for the recipient, for the nurse to monitor the patient's medication compliance. So it's not as important really as the other information. Okay, once again, just like before, let's order the case notes so we can make a logical paragraph. So you've got to put these case notes in order of importance. Again, you've got 30 seconds, guys. Okay, looks good. Yeah, please do keep typing into the chat. So this is what I did here. And again, we're trying to really just think about that word logical and put them in a logical order. Status, well, I'm not really sure if status is the right word. We were kind of discussing this here, but you're just kind of, in a way, it's just the patient has come out of their operation and you're saying that there were no complications. So it's a nice way to start the paragraph. You then got the patient's condition. They can ambulate freely, patient's needs, and then other information. And again, you can see that really it isn't that important. There's nothing there for the recipient to do with medication, so therefore it's not really important. So it should really come at the end of the letter. If you had put that case note maybe at the beginning of the letter, it probably wouldn't have looked so good because it just isn't that important. So what we've got to do now, just like before, you've got a minute now to turn these case notes into grammatical sentences. So you're going to transform these case notes. Think about using synonyms, think about using your own words, think about your verbs and tenses. And again, think about joining some of these case notes together. We're going to keep the order. We're going to write the case notes in this order that we have here. Okay, and then we'll look at a sample answer. Okay, great. You've got a minute, 30 seconds only this time. Okay, that was pretty quick. I have to say, I know you put you under pressure there. I was expecting it to be a minute, to be honest. But great. I mean, 30 seconds. Some of you've done amazing, in fact. And well, here's a sample answer. Postoperatively, Mr. Smith is convalescing well. He is able to ambulate with the use of crutches and may require assistance with showering and dressing. He is compliant with his medication. Some nice sentences there. We used at the beginning a nice phrase there, post-operatively. So a nice introductory clause. You didn't need to write after the operation, but it's a nice way, actually. It's a nice, we call these introductory clauses. It's a nice clause to use. And some nice language. Mr. Smith is convalescing well. In other words, he's getting better. The verb convalesce means to get better, to improve. So it's a nice way of transforming these case notes. Remember the case notes were saying, well, there were no real issues. He was good after the operation. Everything went well. So yeah, he's getting better. He's convalescing well. The case note said he can ambulate. Here, he is able to ambulate. So they've used, the student has used a synonym, which is great. May require assistance. So you might remember there was a question mark. It didn't say he requires assistance. And you need to pick up on those case notes, those little symbols. There was a question mark there. So it means he might require assistance with showering and dressing. So that one word is really important. He may require assistance with showering and dressing. And again, using kind of these nice medical terms as well that you would use in medical letters. He's compliant with his medication. Okay, like I said, I don't really want to go into the grammar. It's hard for me not to talk about language and grammar, but let's stick with organisation. And we're just going to look at topic sentences then. This is another way of organising your paragraphs. A lot of you might be familiar with this in essay writing. A topic sentence introduces the topic of your paragraph. So the very first sentence tells you what your paragraph, it tells the reader what your paragraph is going to be about. So after you have your topic sentence, which tells you the topic, you then have other information. And really, that's your paragraph. Let's take a look at an example. On the 19th of April, Mrs. Smith presented with her daughter, both of whom were concerned about Mrs. Smith's memory loss. Okay, thought I was going to sneeze then. Okay, sorry. So you can see here the topic, you can see what the paragraph is going to be about. Yeah. It's about Mrs. Smith's memory loss. So my first sentence, I'm really telling you, this is what my paragraph is going to be about. Remember with OET, your paragraph has to be logically organized. It could have a main theme. And here the theme really is about the patient's memory loss. I'm now going to support this paragraph with other sentences as well. Examples of memory loss had been noticed, such as forgetting appointments and engagements. So basically, I've just provided a supporting statement. And now I'm going to do the same thing again. Changes in the patient's behavior had also been noted, such as her decision-making. I've got two supporting statements. My paragraph in this example has been made up of 3 sentences, a topic sentence, and 2 supporting paragraphs. So this is another useful way to organize your paragraph as well. And it's something you might want to practice. Okay. Okay, and finally, just looking at the overall organization of your letter as well. There's a couple of ways, in fact, there are many ways you can organize your whole letter. And 2 different ways we have here are order of importance and chronology. You need to identify what is really important information. What's the key information from your case notes? Think about the medical issue. Think about, is it urgent? Is it critical? Is it a vital case? And if it is, often what we do is we use order of importance because we need to get that urgency straight across. You need to go straight to the key information. Sometimes when you're writing chronology, the key information is in the last visit. And if you're going to use order of importance, you need to start with the last visit. It wouldn't always work if you go through chronologically because it's an urgent letter and the urgent information is in the most recent visit, not in the first visit. So sometimes it depends on the situation. If it's an urgent case, you might be better off using order of importance, starting with the purpose, stating the main medical issue, and then talking about other information, basically the semi-relevant stuff, finishing with the discharge plan. Chronological is where you're going by time. You're going visit by visit. Sometimes letters are better suited. You might be asking a recipient to confirm a diagnosis. It might not be so urgent, but you want to show your recipient why you think the patient has a certain condition. In that instance, it might be better to go chronologically. Again, you can see the first paragraph is generally the same. You're talking about the purpose, the reason for writing. You've got to state that in your opening paragraph. You then got different visits, and it all depends. Like I said, every letter is different. You might combine visits together. You might write visit one, visit two, visit three, and in three separate paragraphs. It all depends. Every letter is different, but we're going chronologically. We're going from back to the most recent, and we finish with the most recent visit. Paragraph 4, again, dealing with the discharge plan or future appointments, other needs. So we've got two different structures. And like I said, there are actually lots of different ways you can structure your letter. Okay, let's have a look at this situation here. Once again, we've got a referral letter. The recipient is an admitting doctor again. This time the main complaint, again, in fact, it's the same letter, suspected relapse of pericarditis. So it's the same letter we had at the beginning of this lesson. The purpose is for the recipient to assess and manage the patient. Have a think, guys, with this situation, with these case notes, which is the best way to organize your letter? Would you use order of importance? Would you start with the most recent visit? Or would you go chronologically? Would you go back and finish with the most recent visit? Just have a think for a few seconds. Think about which structure you would use and why as well. Okay, I mean, both letters could pass, whether you use order of importance or chronology, as long as you select the right information and your letter is very well written, both letters can pass. However, like I said before, some letters really they sound better if they're if you're using chronology or if you're using order of importance. But don't panic. It's not like you have to use one or the other. You can still pass with kind of using either organization. With this letter, I think because actually it's quite an urgent situation. Pericarditis, I mean, it's a serious thing. The patient's having a relapse. So in this situation, basically order of importance would have been better. These are the case notes which this task comes from. Don't worry if you can't see this. What I'm going to do here, just going to highlight this. These were all of the key case notes. And you can see all of the key information actually came from the last visit. So this should really have gone at the top of the letter. You had other dates, they were all quite close together. This is when the patient was admitted to hospital and when they were treated. But that information is semi-relevant. The key information came in the last visit. It was all about the patient's current condition, and that's what the recipient needed to know. So in this example, it would have been better to use order of importance. It would have been better to start with the most recent visit. And then with the next paragraph, you can go back and combine those visits together, the previous visits, because that's the semi-relevant stuff. And like I said, the key information, the relevant information, ideally needs to go at the top of your letter. Okay. So just to recap, really just a couple of things with organization and layout. As you select your case notes, think about what's relevant, what's semi-relevant, and what is irrelevant. And remember, the relevant stuff is the key information. Make sure the key information is at the top of your letter and at the beginning of your paragraphs. Don't just hide it away at the end of the paragraphs or bury it somewhere in the middle of a long paragraph. So keep that key information at the beginning of your paragraphs and at the top of your letter. And it's something to think about as you're selecting your case notes as well. Keep in mind the purpose, why you're writing, and what is really important. What does the recipient really need to know to look after the patient? Think about the organizational structure of your letter. Does it look like a letter? You need your letter to really look with clear paragraphing, there should be a space between the paragraphs as well. Make sure your paragraphs are logically organized as well. We looked at how, you start with symptoms, treatment, or test results, and there should be a logic there with your paragraphs as well, and the organization of your whole letter as a whole, chronology or order of importance. Really do think deeply about how you organize your letter, because as you can see, there's a lot there. Don't make the mistake of just copying the case notes in order. Find the key case notes, move them together. That's really what they want in OET, and that's really what could help you. So organization and layout, it's a massive part of your writing exam. Key information, identify the key information and put it at the top of the letter and at the beginning of your paragraphs as well. And please have a look at the criteria as well, because that could really help you as well. Once you understand what the examiners want from you, it does make your life a little bit easier. Okay, that's great. So I hope that has been some use. If you do need help with writing, check out our online writing course. There are some video lessons there. You have 5 tasks to do as well, where you get detailed feedback. So you work with a tutor, you send us your letters, and we give you feedback, written feedback in detail with sample answers. So if you do need help with writing, think about doing that. There's also the writing correction service. Sometimes people prefer this. So you don't have the video lessons. We'll send you case notes, write your letter, send your letter to us, and we'll give you detailed feedback. Then act on the feedback and do your next letter. So that's really nice. This is something which has helped a lot of people get through the writing paper. Check it out, wles.net. So check us out online, wles.net. And of course, there's a whole load of other stuff. There's reading courses, there's listening, there is speaking as well. Again, the speaking course, you can work directly with a tutor as well and have some speaking practice. There are lessons to watch. There are packages as well. wles.net, just have a look. I'm sure you'll find something there you need help with. We've got different packages, nurses, doctors, and also for pharmacists as well, I should add as well. If you're a pharmacist, we've been working with pharmacists. So please do get in touch if you need some advice, some support, if you're looking for a course, if you need a tutor to work with as well. wles.net. There's also stuff on YouTube as well. Please check us out, WLES on YouTube, and you'll find some videos which can hopefully help with your preparation. In case you don't know who we are, I know a lot of you know who we are. This is who we are. I'm on the left, as you can see, Beth. Beth is now really just doing online stuff as well. She's still a massive part of this team and with OET, but she's working primarily online for us at the moment. Catalin as well is doing a lot of online stuff as well. I should say we are, of course, doing face-to-face classes as well. So if you're here in London, or if you're here in England, in fact, and you really are looking for some face-to-face classes, please do get in touch with us. We're open, we're running courses at the moment. We've got students taking the exam this Saturday. We've got classes preparing students for the next exam as well. So we're running face-to-face classes. So if you are in London, please do come in and get in touch. Send us an email, give us a call, come in and have a cup of coffee. We love talking about OET. We'd be happy to give you advice and guidance. So wles.net, wherever you are around the world. I hope that lesson has been of some use, guys. And if you are taking your exam this Saturday, I wish you the best of luck and hope you do get through this exam. And like I said, anything else, get in touch with us, wles.net. It's been a pleasure working with you. It's been great being back. I'll be back in a month's time as well for some more live classes as well. Have a great day, guys. Lovely working with you. And like I said, good luck on Saturday if you are taking the exam. Take care, and I'll see you again.